All right, friends, we've been given the sign that we may go ahead and start, and we certainly may have more people that will be coming in next to us as well. For folks that I haven't had a chance to meet yet, my name's Amy Thompson, and I have the pleasure of serving at the Chamber through our leadership programs. And it's so great to see so many faces and familiar friends, and glad to be with you all today. And I'm truly thrilled to introduce our moderator, and he will get us going with the panel here in just a moment. But I want to go through a couple of items. If you're in the wrong room, you can certainly return back. There's a button at the bottom on the right where you can leave the room, go back into the main session if you're interested in a different spot. We will be talking about Black executives in our region. How can our region support and grow Black talent? And this is going to be a great discussion here in just a moment. We are also recording this and the other sessions as well, so you'll have access to all of them. So let's just jump right in. And Marcus, I got to tell you, I was thrilled when I was assigned to introduce you, my friend. And for all of you that are out there, I could tell you a million different things about Marcus. I could read his bio and tell you that he is, what's his official title? He's a community development manager for Skanska. I could tell you that he's worked at Fifth Third. I could tell you that we sat right next to each other as he was leading our young professional work here at the Chamber. He's also part of Great Parks and the president currently of that board. But what I really want to tell you about Marcus is his heart. And Marcus is someone who is a father, a husband, a son, a family man, a community man. And I mention those things first because when I think about Marcus, I think about the things that matter. And Marcus, you want this world to be better for your kiddos, for all of our kiddos, and you continue to lead as a value-oriented, faith-filled leader. And I'm so thankful to call you my friend, and sometimes I even call you my brother, and so glad you're here with us today. So Marcus, take us away. Let's have some fun.
Thank you so much, Amy. I just want to make sure everybody can hear me okay. Thumbs up. Awesome, awesome. So per those kind words, that must mean the money hit your Venmo account. So thank you. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the Chamber giving me this opportunity to lead this discussion. I'm really excited about it. As Amy said, I do have a heart for not just people, but specifically talent. As she said, I worked at the Chamber and I was in the talent department leading the Young Professional Talent Initiatives through the HYPE program, and really just fell in love with the mission of just building talent and specifically Black talent in our region. And so I just want to thank the Chamber and you, Amy, for those kind words. And I'm really excited. I want to thank our panelists that are also on with me today. I am going to briefly go through just a few quips about their bios. Amy said, about me, I could probably spend the entirety of this conversation just reading through their bios and all the things that our four panelists have done in their personal, professional careers and to help build this region. But they would not be happy with me if I did that. So I just have a few comments about each of them, and then we'll dive right into the conversation. So first, ladies first, we have Donna Jones-Baker with us. Donna is the former CEO of Urban League of Greater Southwest Ohio. She actually led the consolidation of urban leagues from both Cincinnati and Dayton to form the Urban League of Greater Southwest Ohio. Prior to that, she was the executive director of the Associated Black Charities of Maryland. Donna served and serves in many philanthropic leadership roles, such as the Board of Trustees for Xavier University and the Cincinnati Regional Chambers and Cincinnati Child Poverty Collaborative. So Donna, I'm very thankful for you being here. Thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Next up, we have Aliou Joof. This young man is up and coming, if not already there in the region. If you haven't seen just a big, 6'7" jolly gentleman walking down the street downtown, then I don't know where you've been, but Aliou is the Vice President of Employee Health and Benefits with Marsh and McLennan. Aliou was selected to serve on Cincinnati Regional Chambers Vox Futura, where he and a group of leaders consult the Chamber's leadership and board of directors. Aliou is passionate about mentoring local youth through the Cincinnati Youth Collaborative, something he and I both share. So Aliou, thank you to you for being here. Looking forward to hearing from you as well. And then next we have Michael Moore. Michael is a senior IT project manager at Fifth Third Bank. Michael is also the founder of Black Achievers Incorporated. With the belief that you can accomplish more together, Black Achievers is a group dedicated to connecting African-American professionals. Michael also graduated from UC with a bachelor's in engineering. Michael, it's great to see you this morning. And last but not least, if you haven't heard of this individual, I would submit that you've probably been living under a rock here in the Cincinnati region, but Carl Satterwhite is the president and owner of RCF Group. Again, just an absolute titan in this region in regard to mentorship and advocacy of the Cincinnati region. Carl serves on a number of professional organizations, including Fifth Third Cincinnati's Board of Directors, UC Linder Business, the African American CEO Roundtables, and Carl also founded the Black Leadership Forum, which we'll touch on in a little bit. So again, thank you to all of my panelists for being here and joining in this discussion. And I want to kick it off with you, Carl. We are obviously on a program run by the Cincinnati Regional Chamber, which really focuses on business and promoting business here in the region. And we're also talking about mentorship. And so I want to hear from you as a person who owns his own business, has been involved with many businesses here in the region, as part of the CRBC, Cincinnati Regional Business Council. Tell us about the business case for mentorship of young Black talent here in this region.
Thank you very much. I really value this forum. Appreciate all the leaders taking the time for this important topic. I subscribe that there are 3 types of mentorship: virtually, socially, and purposefully. So I knew not one business person in my neighborhood of Lincoln Heights, Zone 15. So I'll share with you the secret of my ultimate business journey. I chose my mentors. I chose them. Didn't ask, accept excuses, or apologize. See, Carl Linder Jr. was my first mentor. First criteria is that he had a great first name. The second criteria is that he was a great man of faith. And the third and last criteria is that he was a great businessman who loved Cincinnati. My second mentor was Mr. Bill Moran. He was chosen when I was parking cars and going to college at the Kroger Company on Vine Street. I try to get his car every day because he would encourage and edify me by saying, Carl, you can be successful in Cincinnati. You can be anything you want to be. You just got to work hard. See, those two unknowingly, virtually crafted my North Star for my business voyage. Now, at that time in my life, I didn't know any business owners that looked like me. I didn't know any brown business owners or Black business owners. So I had to go out and find them for myself. See, I had to go out and find Donna Jones Baker and Cynthia Booth and Janet Reed and Ed Rigaud and David Fox and Ed Jackson and Melvin Gravely and Clifford Bailey and Edgar Smith and Lonnie Grayson and Christopher Shea and Ross and Steve Love and Mr. Philip Holloman. See, they didn't know it at the time, but they were absolutely in my Rolodex of virtual mentors. The test you have to understand is that we're not asking a mentor to tell us how to be our best. We're trying to ask them to show us how to be our best. And that's what these individuals did, unknowingly. So before I could even ask them and get the reason for why they couldn't, I had already chosen them. And I think that's a strategy that has to be used today. We have to look at the actions of leaders, and we have to be able to select those leaders and ultimately believe by faith that we will come in contact with those leaders. See, the African-American leaders taught me how to do business by the good book, how to put more into the community than you take out. And they taught me wealth creation strategies to be shared with those amongst us who co-labor with us and who will follow after us. I am forever indebted to these business leaders and virtual mentors who positively influenced my life.
Wow. Thank
Marcus,
you. Oh,
Marcus,
go ahead. Yes, go
why
ahead,
would
Donna.
you why would you let anybody go after him? Nobody wants to go after Carl.
I know.
Hell of a-
We could drop the mic right there, right?
right now.
Well, I mean, and I appreciate you speaking up too, because what he said, I've never heard of somebody articulate it in that way. The virtual mentors, those you haven't even came in contact with, but yet
Right.
are making a powerful impact in your life. I think that's absolutely amazing. And Donna, Carl mentioned you, so if please touch on that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what he just said.
Well, you know, with the business case of mentorship is that you keep people here. You know, you often hear that Cincinnati is a very difficult place to break into. It's very difficult to make friends or to break into the circles in Cincinnati. And so I think that it's extremely important that we find ways to get people involved. At the Urban League, there are the young professionals, Urban League young professionals, or actually the you have the 100 Black men, 100 Black women. There are fraternities and sororities. When I came here 17 years ago, my sorority wrapped their arms around me, which was extremely important. Otherwise, I would have not known a soul. And that is that I think is the biggest reason that people don't stay here, is because they can't get a good grounding in Cincinnati. It's a wonderful place to be, but you have to have friends and other reasons other than work to be here.
Yeah, I totally agree, and thank you for that, Donna. It's an unfortunate reality that we live in, where trying to become a part of the community seems to be difficult for a lot of individuals who are really, again, just trying to be successful in this region. We do have individuals in this region who are working on that. One of them, again, is on this panel, Michael. Michael, you've got Black Achievers, which specifically was founded to touch on this and fight against this, right?
That is correct. So Black Achievers, I started in 2018, basically in a need for Black professionals to connect. We have over 4,000 members now in the greater Cincinnati area. Much of the stuff Donna was saying is what we hear time and time again, right? So we recruit somebody from Chicago or LA or some large city, they come here. You know, the first thing people ask them is like, what high school did you go to, right? Not what college you went to, but what high school did you go to? And if you can't answer that, you have no shot in Cincinnati, which is unbelievable. And that's unique to Cincinnati. You can go to Atlanta, you can go anywhere you want to go, and your college matters, your professional, everything else matters. But here, if you don't have, you know, hey, I grew up at West Side, I went to, you know, Western Hills High School or Elder High School or St. X or wherever, you need to have that connection here in order to break in. So that's one of the things that I think our group does. So individuals come here and they are able to find a community so that they can then connect with individuals who are already connected, and then to start to prosper, go through mentorship, find community, find a way to lay some roots so that they want to stay here. So that's the type of things that Black Achievers does. And we've been very successful, obviously, in doing that, because 4,000 people have joined our network.
Yeah, that's great. And I've heard so many success stories come from Black Achievers, of individuals who just feel that much more connected and empowered here in this region. And so, Aliou, I'm gonna kick it over to you. I didn't mean to keep you last, but there's a couple things here that I think you can provide a very unique perspective. Kind of going back to something that Carl talked about, being a young man in this region, you went away to Central State and coming back, asking for mentors, and then being able to get involved in connect with individuals so that you can feel empowered yourself, which obviously you've done a great job. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on, and for all the leaders, hope you guys, everyone can hear me okay. So, you know, graduating from Central State, had several opportunities to be in various different cities, and actually had the opportunity to go, you know, in Seattle to work for organization there, and everyone thought I was crazy for turning it down in my school. Like, there is anyone with the deal, with the offer, it was a big difference. And I knew in my heart that coming back to the city that had nurtured me from Senegal, I came here, I learned English, and just the whole experience with Cincinnati. I'm a data graduate, not that holds any weight, but most people say is that West High. Most people don't even know where data is, right? But I still have just a little bit more than someone else who isn't from, who didn't go to high school here. So there's just so many different things I had to learn, and just making the ask as a young man, knowing that, coming in how much I didn't know, right? I grew up in an environment where, I showed up in those statistics of childhood poverty and didn't know anyone in the business community, how the business community worked. And I think that by asking for mentors and people who just saw the type of person I was, the type of heart I have, and the type of authenticity I carry myself every day, it's just who I am. People really they saw something that I did not see in myself. They saw that I was, passionate about mentoring because I was put in bad situations growing up, right? We come from a very ruthless environment where, a lot of my friends and a lot of things like that aren't able to make it out and go to school. So just having that mentorship to say that, we had the mentorship to say, to get to school and do the right things, but we didn't have the mentorship to say, now that you're in business, this is the way you're supposed to go. So people that took me under their wings, the chamber, especially leaders there, and just making sure that I was involved in the community, and they saw the passion that I had, and they kind of molded that passion, right? They told me, hey, this is what you need to do. This is where you need to go. This is how you can make your voice come out and portray yourself as what you want your community to be. So that's the reason I stay. That's the reason I continue to stay. And I think, finding the mentors that are strong, staunch, and always want me to get better is something that continues to help me thrive in this environment.
Thank you for that. I saw somebody in the comments say, we're so glad you chose Cincinnati. And I think I want to echo that. We are better for having you, this region is. But you touched on a couple cool things in terms of the relationship you had with your mentors. I want to open this one up to the group. If anybody wants to jump in. Carl mentioned mentors showing, not just telling, but I would love to hear some other aspects of mentorship relationships that are needed in order for that relationship to be successful and the mentee to thrive as well as the mentor. So I'll open that up if anybody wants to jump in, or I can just choose, but I'll let you guys fight it out.
I'll start so that Carl doesn't. And you've got to know I love Carl Satterwhite. But I've had so many mentors over my career, and like Carl, some of them didn't even know that they were my mentors. But I would. You've got to like the person. You've got to have, simpatico. You've got to be able to have the same goals and objectives actually with your mentor. I think, I have men and women. Don't just choose because you're a woman, choose a woman mentor. I think that it's important that you have both sexes, that because people have different ideas and insights and experiences that they can share with you. I think too, it's really important, let me go back a little bit in the whole mentorship arena. When I first started my career, I worked for the United Way, and I worked there for almost 5 years. I think I was 3 months shy of 5 years before I went to Associated Black Charities, which meant that I wasn't vested in their retirement plan. Didn't mean anything to me then. It does now. If I'd had a mentor that would share with me the importance of different things. And I could have worked that out so that I could have had that United Way retirement plan in addition. And so for the folks that are online, that are early in their career, think about the end of your career as well, because it is important. And the mentors that you have all along the way are important as well.
Yeah, and I'd add that, you know, we gotta create concentric circles. So that there has to be something that's going to bind you together, because I think the best relationships are going to be built around trust. So you have to find a way that you're going to be able to do that. And a lot of folks can do that, sports, you know, academia, whatever it is that brings you together. That's a way to do that. And this kind of leads into my second subscription is by socially. An example I'll give is that, you know, I just looked around the neighborhood that I lived in, and I would see people of color at the local Kroger that I didn't know. So I said, you know, maybe this is a good way to just see if these folks want to come together. And we just started coming together first just because we lived in the same neighborhood, and stopped giving each other the Christian cool and start acting like brothers and said, let's talk. And once we got together, we were able to find our interest. We were all about making the community better. We were all about uplifting youth, but then we're also to build trust, because trust is a key foundational factor in any true mentorship relationship. Again, I would subscribe that a mentee has to be able to trust that they can call a mentor at 3 o'clock in the morning. Not only to trust that I'm going to call them, but they're going to answer. That takes time to really build that kind of trust. But if you have that, I believe we can break away from the old model of one-to-one. Because one-to-one mentorship is a tough thing to subscribe to today. Most of us, I'll speak for me, we got Pookie and Ray Ray in our family. We got our own families to take care of. We got our own associates and employees and members and sorors and frats, and you got all this. So that one-to-one thing is just going to be tough. It's almost a 4-letter word. So I think we got to find ways to encourage young leaders and how to create one-to-many. How to get one-to-many relationships, create circles of trust, and then you can build on your interests to be able to develop each other and have long-term relationships. I'm very proud that I have mentees who now have kids who are calling me, telling me what I did for them when they were teenagers. And my point is that all of us on this call are mentoring, whether we know it or not. The question is, how do we deepen that relationship to make it more impactful, to make it more sustainable, and to make it more replicatable?
So I'll jump in on that, Marcus. So first off, of course, Carl's mentored everyone, and myself included. As soon as I started Black Achievers, he was one of the very first people to reach out to me. So Carl is just, like Donna said, I mean, he's next level. So all of us subscribe to trying to get to that type of place in our journey. Like Donna had also said, you know, we want diversity of gender, but you also, you know, this is Black talent, so we want diversity along racial lines, right? And I think that that's important, because what Black Achievers seeks to do is bring together African Americans who want to achieve more, achieve the American dream, but we can't do that in a vacuum. We have to connect with our allies in different community organizations, different companies, and we need a systematic approach to do that, and that's what we're doing. So in your personal life, and I see a lot of allies that are on this call, I want to make sure that you are choosing to mentor an African American within your circle or within your company. And to give you an example, I've had great success with Black Achievers, but it has not come just from the Black community. So Mary Stagaman, who was formerly with the Chamber, she's like, almost all the success that I've had with creating partnerships has come from her. She meets with me on a weekly basis. She's been phenomenal. Now she has her own company, and it's just amazing how she's given back through me. And then I have Bill Tucker at the Flywheel. He's a great gentleman who's a president of that organization, and he's getting Black Achievers connected as a pipeline into the tech community and things of that nature. And through the Leadership Council, I'm also being mentored by Aaron Childs at Pro Bono Partnerships for legal needs that we have, and just the idea of like, how do you grow a nonprofit and make it into this entity that can help thousands of people. So it's important that we come together along racial lines as well as gender, and you have different types of mentorship so that you can embrace all of the opportunities and the different ways. And then as far as mentors are concerned, it allows you to give back to the community and make our community stronger, because we want Cincinnati to be bigger and better and more amazing. That can only happen if we're bringing African Americans and the white community together to do that. So I just wanted to make sure I touched on that.
Oh, perfect. Thank you very much, Michael. And before I go, I'm going to make Aliou, I think you have a unique perspective again as a YP in this, in terms of relationships, mentor relationships, and I think somebody said earlier, the sustainability of them. Some key things that are needed to make those sustainable. If you have anything to add, if not, it's okay. I don't want to force you.
No, I definitely had some things to add from the perspective of young YPs. And one of the things that, specifically is we have to be proactive with it as YPs, right? Just by the nature of things, Carl's going to be a lot more busier than I am in my stage in the career. And I think that, sometimes there's this stage fright or this barrier that you made a connection, but you're scared to kind of move it and progress it along. So I think, just my advice to some of the YPs, and something that I've had to get to, is develop the relationship to where you are comfortable calling someone at 3 in the evening, or whatever the case is, 3 a.m. with something urgent. And the way to do that is be proactive, take them out to lunch, and just make sure that, they understand everything that's going on with you personally within the business that you're trying to do and everything like that. But also that you take the time to listen to them and offer your perspective on things that are going on in their life, because that might be something, like you said, we all walk different paths of life. So I find that just my thought and what I provide to my mentors has been very, it's just been something that's helped them. And I think that was something that I was not aware of how much that, sitting down, it's a give and take relationship. Yes, they pour a lot into me, but now as I'm, coming into who I am, I in turn give them a lot of advice and a lot of things that they can be working on. And it's just developed a lot of those relationships. So that's be my biggest advice for YPs, just be proactive with it, understand where we're at in our career paths, and just take the onus on yourself to reach out a lot more towards your mentors at this stage.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So I want to go back a little bit, because both Carl and Michael, you guys have created groups that essentially allow for this group/peer mentorship model. And I want to talk about the group mentorship, forming, again, with like-minded individuals, forming a group that you can use to hold each other accountable, support each other, lift each other up. Please touch on that, because again, you guys both started 2 amazing initiatives, and I think they're extremely important and have benefited this region a great deal.
I always let Carl go first. So Carl.
Well, I could do that. I could do that. It's back to the conversation around creating concentric circles. And if a lot of folks know about the African American CEO Roundtable, which was really founded by Janet Reed. But if you think about what really happened at that time, you found a lot of Black leaders who came together who had like minds. And what I mean by that is, and this is really particular to the YPs, at that time when we all came together, our children were grown. So we were all empty nesters. We all had come out of some corporate career where we had some tenure, and we all had the ability to travel with short notice. So that foundation allowed us to come together quickly. We could go and have a retreat at Ross Love's home, the second home, and we could come together and continue to sharpen one another. So it was really about not just a group to be networking. It was a group to really iron sharpen iron. What are your blind spots? If you are willing to come forward and talk about your shortcomings or talk about your challenges, personal or in business, here's a group that you can trust, because this group is not going to share confidences outside of this space. And so it's a circle of truth, but it also is a place that's using their own experiences to pour into one another. Now, I'm not suggesting that YPs can't enter that space. I readily challenge YPs to today find a way to digitize how to get in that conversation, because that group has such trust, such tenure. They've been together since 2003, but it is a knowledge bank that needs to be giving back. It needs to be pouring back into the community, pouring back into YPs. You know, we need to tie into Black achievers. There's a lot of things we need to do so that we could weave a tapestry of that knowledge, but I believe that's gonna have to be a digital solution. There's gonna have to be a digital way to get in the room, or a digital way to record, so that even my granddaughter can hit a button and hear from Janet Reed why she did the things she did. Why did she stay in Cincinnati? Well, she had the option to go other places. So somehow we got to think about how to bring some artificial intelligence and some digitization to this mentor-mentee relationships.
Yeah, I'll kind of pick up or piggyback on what Carl was saying. So just like Carl and Janet Reed had created the CEO Roundtable and that type of group, what I've attempted to do and have done is create similar thing for the masses of African Americans in the city. And we've come together. We have young professionals. Half of our group is under 35. The other half acts as more seasoned professionals to help mentor them, and trying to create this approach where we're able to connect. And to Carl's point, we do a lot of this electronically through Zoom. We have portals where we interact, and basically you always have someone to bounce ideas off of and to feel like you're part of a community. So I think that's the biggest aspect of it. A lot of African Americans that are trying to progress their career, we find that the higher we go up, the more isolated we are. So there's less of us at every step. So when I'm at Fifth Third, I'm usually the only African American in an IT filled room, right? So it gets hard to distinguish between when I'm saying something extremely stupid and people are like, hey, this is not a great idea, or if I'm being in a position where it's like, well, you know, maybe his perspective is not being taken into account, and it might be due to the fact that I'm African American male in the room. So, you know, it becomes challenging, and you need to have a mentor, you need to have peers, you need to have a group, someone else is going through that right then and there to say, hey, you know, that's something you need to think about, or that's something on you. So these are the types of interactions that I think a group or peer mentorship, people who are going through the same types of things that you're going through at the same exact time, can help you and build those types of bonds and make you a better person. So I'll leave it at that, Marcus. But
Marcus, if I can jump in for a minute.
Yes, please, please.
The Urban League has a program called Urban Leaders that is over 20 years old. And it's a 9-month program that speaks to the issues that Michael was just talking about. You know, that you have a group of people who are the only ones and have been the only ones. And they come together once a month, and there's a program, and the bond that they experience is phenomenal. And they also have a group that they can commiserate with. And so, yeah, you know, there are a number of different opportunities throughout Cincinnati that people can get involved in, but it is so important to have that group that you feel comfortable with.
I thank you for chiming in, Donna. And actually, I was going to come to you next, because I think you guys make a great point in regard to being the only ones, especially as you move up. And Donna, as a Black person, that's true, but then even more so as a woman. So the question I have, and hopefully I would like you to touch on, is the mentor versus advocate. Mentorship is important, but tell me how that can either mix in or differentiate from an advocate, and the need for that as you try and advance in your career.
Boy, you know, the word advocate means that they're going to go to bat for you when you need it. And a mentor doesn't necessarily do that for you. A mentor gives you advice and counsel and talks to you when, tells you things like when I was talking about my retirement plan, gives you advice and counsel on that. But an advocate would actually go to bat for you and help you through the challenges and problems that you have. I don't know that one is any better than the other. I think that we need both. I think we need, and I think that during different periods of our careers, we might need an advocate at some point and a mentor at some point. And so I think we need both.
Yeah, thank you. And Aliou, have you differentiated in terms of the individuals that you have reached out to or reached out to you in terms of the advocate versus mentorship? How has that looked for you? And yeah.
Yeah, I think, again, when I first started out, didn't know the difference between the two, right? There's a distinct difference between the two. So I think, I think someone usually who's an advocate is someone who's internal within the organization or the organization that you're trying to get to. And a mentor, although they can be internal, you've established a relationship with someone that says, hey, it's going to transcend our organization, right? It's going to transcend our time here at this organization, and they care about you at a deeper passion than that. The advocates are important because they speak for you when you are not in the room in business settings, right? So when it is time for promotions, when it is time to, for instance, when it's time to hand over a book of business after someone retires or divvy that up. Hey, this is Aliou. I know he's always in my office. He's always asking about these strategic things. This is why the account should go to him. And oftentimes when we're not in the room, if you have not developed the advocate relationship with someone within your organization, they are not going to push for you. So I think oftentimes your advocate should not be your boss or your direct manager. It should be someone either, a few levels up that you kind of disseminated that relationship, or in another division, and they can speak on behalf of the type of work that you do. So the mentor is, again, something that Carl alluded to. You want to have that spiritual connection, that sense of community with someone, and someone that's going to look after you because they know who you are and they see something that you don't currently see at the moment. Whereas the advocate is someone, again, that's going to help you within the business realm, that's going to push for you to be successful as long as you're doing the things that you need to do.
Oh, thank you for that perspective. So, I mean, in my career, and I can just give a quick shout out, pay her the favor back to Amy. Amy, I consider somebody who is on my personal board of directors. So I consider her both a mentor as well as an advocate. And frankly, I don't know if I have a tenure at the chamber if Amy is not advocating for me to get that position. And that's just a fact. And so I'm greatly appreciative for that relationship and being able to have both mentor and advocate relationships with those that I look up to. But kind of brings me further, Amy and I are brother and sister. We share the same last name, but but we obviously two different races, Amy being white, myself being black. I would like to hear, I'll probably bump this to Carl. What advice do you have? You mentioned earlier, it doesn't have to be gender to gender, it doesn't just have to be race to race. Mentors can come in all shapes and sizes, but what advice do you have for our individuals listening who are not black, but see an opportunity to mentor Black individuals, specifically young Black individuals, or be an advocate?
Yeah, what I would add to the audience is to my third point around make the concentric circle around purpose. What's the purposeful reason you could come together? That's negating race, gender, ethnicity. That is really around purpose. So how might you do that? And I was very, very proud of, if you look at what happened with the conversation about the NBA, it really was the calm that came after the storm. So we had the storm in 2001 and we had a calm. But we had a storm in 2018 behind the United Way CEO transition. The calm that came out of that really was the Black Leadership Forum. Because what really happened is the Black Leadership Forum under a different eclectic group of people, not bound by any of the things we're talking about, but bound around purpose. What we really realized is that there was a cavernous gap between the business community and a nonprofit leadership, particularly with Black-led organizations. It could also be a city government. So I don't have to have you think long when you say, where was the partnering when there was a challenge with Chief Craig? Where was the convening when there was a challenge with Harry Black? Where was the challenge when there was a convening around Michael Johnson? So what we realized, and it really was, a different group of people that came around the purpose. So at its foundation, it was Philip Holloman, it was O.Z. Davis, and it was Vanessa White. And we really came together and said, we need to try to do something different. We need to try to come up with a way first to figure out how to be in better relationships for the purpose of Black-led nonprofit work. And I had, as a native Cincinnatian, I had to call myself guilty of having not reached across the aisle to leadership of nonprofit organizations to create what we're doing here today. And that's what is lacking, because it wasn't that we were, if we're looking for social cause, if we're looking for economic cause, this was about purpose. This was about truly attracting, retaining, and sustaining Black-led organizations and leaders in this community. And that was going to take all of us. So it really is kind of an eclectic group of leaders who came together around the purpose of that. And now I know more Black-led leaders in this city than I have ever known, being a native of the city, but it took purpose. And now we work together. We talk about how to share business practices and strategies to help their organizations. We get to, there have been some who have decided to move on from Cincinnati, but they didn't move on with the old day, you can never make it there. You can't crack the code. They moved away with, there's a relationship there, there's a foundation there, there's people who care. And that's what we got to be about. We got to be broader. We got to hold hands. We got to create a net. And we got to make that net so that anybody coming in new, anyone who's been here 5 years or less that feels lost, or any here that's been 5 years or more and feel like they got to leave, and we got to let them know there is love. And we are going to work together. And again, that's not a bulletproof that people will fail or never leave or they can't be terminated. But it absolutely is that there is a family of leaders that cares about your success, and it has to be from this moment forward.
Oh, that's powerful. That really is.
Hey, Marcus.
Yes, sir. Please. Yeah.
I want to add something to the Michael Johnson debacle that kind of fell upon us. I think a lot of the YPs in the circles that I run in were absolutely disgusted by what was going on. And I think a lot of people didn't really understand how I literally had friends move away because the perception is they will never make it in Cincinnati if Michael Johnson can't make it in Cincinnati. And, it got very ugly. And I think that leadership has done a good job of trying to kind of just ensuring us. But I think the more conversations we have, and Carl, you made a lot of good points about some of the things that you all are working on that I was not aware of. But the perception, against the YPs, like I said, I literally know people that took jobs in other cities. So just, we have to understand that we're setting the role model. Everyone is watching. And that the pace that we set as far as mentorship and just the news and everything like that affects us in ways in our city in ways that we don't see often.
No, thank you for that, Aliou. I just stuck with words because that really was a tough situation for this entire city. I mean, to see that happen and in the way it did in such a public manner, to your point, that really did not help the perception of Black leadership, the unity behind Black leadership, mentorship, advocacy here in this region. But I really like what Carl said about how they came together with a purpose to really reach across the aisles and reach to different nets, if we spread that net to different areas, to really come with a purpose about how we can fix this and how we can make this better going forward. Donna, I want to kick it to you if you have anything to add around just the purpose behind this initiative and what we've been talking about.
Not really. I think that you all have covered it all. I would say that it's really important that all segments of the society get involved in this, because it's not just a Black thing. It is a community thing. I was in a forum a few years ago. It was really interesting. A white exec said that he had hired a young Black male to a high position. And the first thing that the young man did was to go out and buy a flashy car. And after that, he was pulled over every other week by the police. That too is an issue that Cincinnati needs to address. I think that the business community needs to work with the nonprofit community to figure out some of these things. We can't depend on, or we can't expect that one segment of the community is going to take care of something. It requires all of us, all of our brain power, all of our strength and courage and hard work to make the community better.
Agreed. So, and looking at the time, we've had robust conversations in the chat group, but I'm sure there's many questions out there that individuals may have for the panel. I want to give the opportunity for those listening to ask those questions. Amy, I'm not sure what's the best route, if people just speak up or type them.
We have about 80 folks who are here with us. It might be nice for people to come off mute, and we'll just kind of manage that as it goes. It's nice to hear some different voices this morning as well.
Yeah. So please ask all the questions if you have one. Chime in. Anyone?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Rodney Coates. First of all, thank you for a wonderful presentation. Okay. The one question I have is, how do we, I teach at Miami University. Okay. How do we get the universities involved in this one? How do we create pipelines and or into businesses? How do we leverage our institutions to actually become partners in this process?
I'll take the first stab at that. What I would share is a strategy that we used in 2012, and just kind of recreate it. It was actually ultimately taken over by Diverse by Design, but what it was bringing together, again, concentric circles of employee assistance programs, or ERGs. So we literally brought together the ERGs from corporate, academia, nonprofit, public service, and you find a host. That could be a university or college. You could do it on Zoom, and you can have them all come together. Now they're all coming together representing either a specific ethnicity, race, or gender. And what we did over time is we blended it to be one room, but to start, it might be one particular group. And all of you are really sharing best practices. We talk about what's working well. I'll just share an example. I remember Stu Akins, who was the CEO of Dunnhumby at the time, he called me when we had done the first one and said, we don't have any African Americans as senior at what he called grade 5. And I said, that wasn't a prerequisite. You can bring whoever's within your organization. And what he ended up doing was bringing his HR, and his HR was there solely to talk to the room to say, how do you identify, recruit, and retain talent of color? We want to learn from you, Procter & Gamble. We want to learn from you, Children's Hospital. We want to learn from you, University of Cincinnati, University of Dayton. So think about bringing together a room around a concentric circle I'm sure you have affinity groups within the university that might be small or might be a multicultural group, but how do you bring them together to all talk about what's working best at their organization and where they might need some more support from you?
Let me push back. Being a university, we cannot wait for Black kids to come up to our door. Okay. Given the dropout rates, the failure rates in places like Lincoln Heights, in places like Dayton, in places like Cincinnati, where 40 to 50% of Black kids, in particular Black males, are not graduating. Okay. We need to get on their plate these young Black kids in the 4th, 5th, 6th grade. Because, by the way, if they don't take the courses in the 4th and 5th grade, they're not going to take the course in 7th and 8th grade. By the time they get to the 12th grade, they don't have the requisite stuff to go into STEM, to go into business, so forth and so on. So again, the purpose of universities is to work with Cincinnati Public Schools and other schools to help create pipelines. I'm off the soapbox.
It's a great soapbox.
Yeah, and Rodney, I think we all agree with you in terms of the passion that you express behind it. I would tell you and make mention of, and I said it in the beginning, Lou and I share something in that we mentor through the Cincinnati Youth Collaborative. And there are a number of different organizations like the Cincinnati Youth Collaborative who are attacking exactly what you're speaking to on an individual basis through mentorship and through group mentorship and through the programs that they offer. We do have a long way to go as a region, as a country, but there are things that are happening, and I would encourage you to please keep that passion up in challenging the system as you just did and are.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Are there any other questions from the group?
Yeah, my name's Anthony Harris. The one thing that I think we need to address too is with the current pandemic, we've got a lot of children that are falling behind because of the lack of resources in the home with respect to, technology and the ability to access the internet. There are going to be some struggles going forward, and we're going to have to figure out how to close the gaps that are being created right now due to the lack of availability to those resources. I mean, you hear a number of teachers in the public realm right now, and I think it's going to affect, people of color the most that are actually not even showing up at this point. So as we continue to look down the road, we are going to have to really consider this and how we're going to bridge that gap going forward.
Thank you, Anthony. Does anybody have anything to add to that? I mean, I completely agree. Seeing some of the kids, speaking with some of the kids that I personally serve through some of the organizations that I'm affiliated with, there are struggles in regard to their connection right now to get the proper education during this time. And it's a struggle. And as I said, I know there are organizations that are looking to attack that, but long way to go. I think we have time for about one more question, two if it's a quick one.
Marcus, this is Kurt Reiber at Free Store, and I appreciate the conversation here. It's really been powerful. I have a question for Aliou. You mentioned earlier about mentees needing to be proactive in their efforts and offer their perspective to their mentors. How do you build up that trust in order to make sure that happens? Because we have a number of African American men and women that are here in middle, management roles at the Free Store, but we want to continue to encourage them and build on their, foundation. But how do we build up that trust that is meaningful?
Yeah, I think it's just, from the perspective, it's the environment and the culture. That's what I think that culture kind of allows people to be upfront. So I'll give you personal, for instance, with Carl, right? I set lunch with Carl, and then the pandemic hit, and I never initiated to restart that back up. Now, Carl's always been nice, always been open, but I need to go and do that, right? And he's through our conversations, he's never made it seem like I can never reach out anytime. He's always made it seem like, hey, you can reach out at any time, man, anytime. So I think it's about the environment and leadership setting the tone and saying, reach out at any time. Do not struggle on your own. And I think sometimes we do struggle on our own because we have pride, because we're successful, because we have degrees, right? And all these other things. And just lowering that and making sure that everyone feels safe, comfortable to say what they want to say, come as they are. And that, you know, you say, again, this is about mentorship. This is about making you the best you, because when you make people the best you, in turn, it's going to make them the best employee they can be. And that, so I think that, you know, that's just some of the things that I've seen me personally, where the environment is set. It just makes me more open. And when people give me tips, and I just go running with it because I know it's coming from a genuine place.
Thank you.
Absolutely, Kurt.
Great question, Kurt. Thank you. It looks like we've got about 1 minute and 30 seconds left, so I don't want to get into a question that's going to just have us be turned off right in the middle of it. But I would say, again, I just want to thank my panelists. You guys are amazing. Just the conversation, the perspective that you offered, the wisdom, I appreciate it, and just so thankful to have been a part of this discussion with you. I think some of the key takeaways that we can take, and I'll just go back to what Carl said in the beginning, that virtually being a leader without even knowing that you're being a leader, being a mentor without even knowing that you're being a mentor in your actions, socially, getting a group together, that peer mentorship, to advocate for each other, to hold each other accountable and lift each other up. And then with a purpose, mentoring and advocating with a purpose. I think that is an extremely important part that really ties it all together. And so if there's anything that we can all take away, I think it's those three things. And then don't be afraid. Action is the best key. So 30 seconds left. I want to make sure Amy's got a chance to give direction, but thank you to everybody. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Amy. I'll kick it back to you.
I just want to say thanks again. I've been writing furiously, and you know, my Donna and Michael, I'm immediately thinking, gosh, there's incredible partnership opportunities with Black Achievers and Urban League to create these mentor models with the chamber. We could really lead this, and now might be the right time. So thanks again for everyone being here and engaging conversation. Marcus, thank you for leading us. So much appreciated, and great thanks. And I think we will head back here in just a moment. You can click the button that says leave the breakout room, and we'll see you back in the main room.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marcus.
Thank you.